व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतभद्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः ॐ ध्यानमूलं गुरुर्मूर्तिः पूजामूलं गुरुर्पदम् मन्त्रमूलं गुरुर्वाक्यं मोक्षमूलं गुरुकृपा ॐ कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। हरि ओम। सद्गुरु भगवान की जय। सच्चिदानंद भगवान की जय। कृष्ण भगवान की जय। गीता महारानी की जय। हरि ओम। We are discussing Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the eternal science. Thirteenth discourse, named the yoga of the distinction between the field and the knower of the field. Yesterday we saw a little, just in the beginning, Arjuna had some doubt in his mind. He asked, what sort of knowledge the devotee who is so dear to you, who is full of all the divine qualities which leads one to the one-pointed devotion on the absolute Lord, absolute truth. So what sort of knowledge he obtains by uniting with you, being one with you, O Lord? This is how Arjuna puts the question. Prakritim purusham jaiva kshetram kshetrajnam eva cha etat veditumichhami jnanam jnayam cha kesavam. Arjuna said, I wish to learn about nature, matter, and the spirit, soul, the field and the knower of the field, knowledge and that which ought to be known. O Kesav, O Lord, I want to know this. Why? Because we are always discussing whatever in the speech or in words, it is only in the relative world. If a devotee has some devotion towards the Lord, then is it not true? The devotee is different from the Lord. So he has to practice. He has to try to lose his identity, which is at present in the relative world. That means he has some identity as different from the Lord, and that should be forgotten. That should be deleted completely, and then only his mind, fourfold mind with ego, will dissolve in the absolute one, the absolute truth, which is one, which is not relative world. It is beyond all these relativities. So when you are, it is just like when you are in darkness, then only you need for some light, and you seek for the light. And when light dawns, then you are no more in darkness. Everywhere is light. That is what we experienced and celebrated in the Deepavali night just past few days ago. That is the removing or forgetting or going from the darkness to the light. So naturally, we have to know what is darkness. Then only we will try something to do with the darkness. If you don't know what is troubling you, if you don't know how your leg is paining, how it is, how you are feeling pain in your leg, you don't know. So how can you remove the cause? So you must know what is the cause for your miseries and difficulties, problems and all these. Then only you have to try for curing the disease. So you must know what is relativity, what is the world. So this world is nothing but nature. Nature, just as the heat and light is the nature of the fire, so also we are in the nature of the absolute. So we have to know what is nature and how it is, what it is. That is called Prakriti. So Arjuna is asking the question on Prakriti. What is the nature? And Purusha, who is dealing with the nature, who is the holder of the nature. Whose nature? Whose nature? Just as light and heat is the nature of fire. Fire is the holder of this nature, what is called fire and light. Similarly, if nature we have understood now a little, it is nature in which we are dwelling in. So naturally there is the question, where from it is hold, who is is the holder of the nature? Whose nature it is? Mataji, come forward. So naturally Arjuna should have this question. What knowledge is obtained by a devotee when when the devotee is one with you, goes beyond this relative world, beyond the mind, speech and intellect, beyond everything. That's how Arjuna asked this question. I wish to learn about nature, matter and the spirit, soul, the field and the knower of the field. Field means where all these field means, it is, if we consider the case of a farmer, he deals with the plot, field, where he sows the seeds and harvests the crop. That is his life's business. So similarly, if nature plays some role, then what is called field and what is called the knower of the field, that means the controller of the field, who is the user of the field. Field means the plot. That also means the substratum on which something is raised. If there is no foundation, how can there be any building? If there is no stage, how can there be any drama or anything? So it should be known, and that's how Arjuna asks all about these things. These things means the plot, the field, and the knower of the field, who knows it, who controls it. If there is no director who wants to stage a drama, then there is no need of any stage. So what sort of stage must be there to stage a drama? The director knows. Who is the knower of the field? He knows everything. Who is the director? And how is this stage or the substratum or the holder or the field? No, hold. Hold is the field, holder is the stage, the substratum. So all these he wants to know. In some of the books you will not find this verse. If you include this verse also, the number of verses of the Bhagavad Gita will become 701. Some commentators look upon this verse as an interpolation. We have come to the beginning of the third section of the Gita. Gita is divided into 3 sections. First 6 chapters, and second 6 chapters, and third 6 chapters. In this way. And these 3 sections can be compared with any three, sattva, rajas, tamas, or the question and the answer and the result of it. So in this way, in 3 sections, all these 18 chapters are divided. So we have now finished 2 sections, and the third section is the essence of all these. Essentially, the same knowledge is taught in this section, but there are more details and essential details. This discourse on Kshetra matter is commenced with a view to determine the essential nature of the possessor of the two prakritis, two natures. We have already discussed it a bit before. The lower and the higher, lower nature and the higher nature. Everybody, everywhere we see the lower nature and the higher nature. This lower and higher also, it has got different meanings. Lower may be, you may mean it, lower means gross, and lower means internal also, subtler also. Both way you can interpret it. In this way, you have to understand it according to the context, how it is used, where it is used, and what should be the proper meaning. So this nature is also divided into two categories, that is lower and higher. Here, the higher nature we may mean we have already discussed it. There are two types of nature. One is unmanifested and other is manifested. One is blueprint in the mind of the architect, and the other is Aja idhar aja. Lead fine. So one type is called unmanifested nature, other is manifested nature, two types of nature. That means just as a building is constructed, first there should be the ideas of the building, the needs, the purpose of the building, everything should be in the mind of the architect. And then he goes on thinking properly over it. And then he gives a form to his ideas, that is called blueprint. And then some maps are made out of those blueprints. Maps means all different sections of the building, how it will look like. And then also a model is to be made, small form of the whole building, how it will look like. And then when everything is done in theory form, then it will come to the field for practical erection of the building. And that is when everything is given to the mind of the contractor. Contractor also parts with, shares it with the makers, masons and laborers, everything. Everybody who takes part in it should have thorough knowledge of it. Then only the building can be constructed over the field, over the plot where you want to make it, construct it. So in this way it is by phase by phase. It is not all of a sudden. So unmanifested is in the minds of the architect. Nothing is visible to anyone. Nobody can understand what is there. In the minds of the architect, in the form of bubbles in the bottom of the water pond. When you put a pebble on the superficial water, it goes down and reaches the bottom, and then comes out a bubble. One or more than one also sometimes. And then when it comes to the surface, then only you see that bubble is there over the surface. Then that is visible to you. Similarly, all these ideas which are latent, which are there in the universal mind, which is not manifested, which is not visible to anyone, no form, no name, nothing. That is called unmanifested, but yet there is something which may manifest any time according to situation. Same is also, we can take as the example of a seed. In the seed, the future thousands, innumerable trees are hidden in unmanifested form. The potentiality is there. Any moment when it gets favorable conditions, it may manifest as a sprout, as a small seedling, and then it cannot remain as it is, it has to grow. And when there is a growth, then there is also decay. The opposite of it. So in this way nature goes on in cycle. The creation, the sustenance of it, and then dissolution of it. So the cycle goes on. That is called visible manifested nature. And it will have some laws. In this way, this nature is of two types. One is higher, that is unmanifested, and the lower is the manifested. This is common meaning. And if you go on analyzing and go on elaborate explanation of the meaning and the form of all these, then there will be so many different meanings of it. This is common meaning. In the previous discourse, a description of the devotee who is dear to the Lord is given from verse 13 to the end in eight stanzas. That is what we discussed as the eightfold nectarian stanzas. Now the question arises, what sort of knowledge of the truth should we possess? What sort of knowledge? Knowledge also is of many types. Many types. You see, mainly it is of two types. Many times we have discussed it, again and again, two types of knowledge. From one angle it is theoretical and other is practical. Theories anybody can have, but practical knowledge very few have. From other angle if you see, this is also of two kinds. One is informative and other is experiential. You see how we get the knowledge. So naturally, the devotee, what kind of knowledge he will get? So knowledge has to be understood thoroughly well. What kind of knowledge? This question is possible when there are different kinds of knowledge. If knowledge is of one kind, then this question cannot rise, because knowledge is of different kinds. See how we get the knowledge. When the senses of knowledge, eyes, ears, nose, skin and tongue, all these five senses, the form, the name or the sound, the form, the sound by ears, touch by the skin, and the smell by the nose, the taste by the tongue. In this way, five kinds of knowledge we obtain by the senses. When the senses get associated only with their respective objects, eyes when get contacted with the form, then only you know what is what. You get some knowledge of the form. This is a building. No, that is a tree. All these are forms only. So by eyes you see it and get the knowledge. So the eyes when get contacted with the form, then you know some informations about the form, and those informations are very haphazard, because eyes cannot remain steady on one form for long. It has to change, because this is the law of nature. Either the form changes or the sight of the eye changes. Everything is changing. Nature means a changing process. So, whatever information you get by the contact of the eyes with the forms, that is temporary, haphazard, for a moment only, and that has to change. Today you have seen the building white, and tomorrow when you come, it is colored with green color. Today you saw the green tree, and after 2 months there will be shading of the leaves. Before spring, you see no leaves in the tree. So everything changes, every moment everything changes. So whatever information you get by the contact of the senses with its objects, the ear hears some sounds, sound changes, your hearing also changes, and that sound differs. That sound is whatever knowledge of the sound you get, that is temporary, for a momentary. It changes. So in this way, whatever information you get, which is called knowledge on the objects, that is very temporary, momentary, haphazard, and subject to change. So this is named as informative knowledge, which is not reliable. We have so much knowledge. Today we have some knowledge of Indian history, and tomorrow the history will change. Every day the history changes. We have some knowledge of the geography. Geography also changes. Climates change. Ecology changes. Everything changes. So whatever knowledge you have, bookish knowledge, informative knowledge, that is not enough, that is always changeable. Your knowledge is good for nothing. You cannot claim, I am a great wise man, I have gone through so much books. Those books are good for nothing. All the informative knowledge in the books, they change. You see, in the schools and colleges, the course changes. Everywhere, everything changes. Everything changes. So your knowledge is not reliable. It is good for nothing, but it is good only for a little time in a particular situation, in some place. What knowledge you get at Uttarkasi, that is not useful at Delhi. Your experience at Uttarkasi has no value in South India. Everything is changed according to time, space, conditions, situations, everything it depends upon, and that changes. So this knowledge is haphazard and it is called informative knowledge. But you have tasted honey at Uttarkasi, and if you taste the same honey at Madras, Chennai, will there be any difference? The same honey tastes same in all conditions. That is called experiential knowledge, which never changes. Never changes. So that is not expressed. When the same experience is expressed through speech or body language, that will also change. Suppose I asked, I have not tasted honey. You have tasted. If I ask you how does honey taste like, what will you say? Can you express it properly 100%? I have not tasted honey. Unless and until I taste honey, you cannot explain honey, how does it taste like? Is it not? So that experiential knowledge, it is same in everyone, everywhere. It is unconditional, it is never changeable, it is reliable. That is called proper knowledge. हो गया और क्या पानी अभी नहीं हो गया अभी पानी जरूरत नहीं So what sort of knowledge of truth should we possess? The knowledge of the truth, the knowledge of, say, some particular object, Gangotri. I know Gangotri. I have been there in all seasons, in winter, in summer, in rainy season. I know the climate, how it changes. I know all sorts of animals, birds living there, all sorts of vegetations grown there. I know the climatical condition, temperature. I know the persons living there, how long they live, what kind of people live in Gangotri. Yet it is not enough, but yet I have been living in Gangotri since so long, for so many years, and I know, I have experienced on these matters, climate, the animals, birds, and the vegetations, the change of seasons, everything I know. That is my experiential knowledge. But you know about Gangotri. Gangotri is 100 kilometers from here, and it is a hilly place of pilgrimage, and there is some temples. The main temple is Ganga's temple, and it opens for 6 months, and then the temple closes for 6 months. In this way, some information you have, and people can go there by walk, by bikes also, by cars also, buses also go there. And the temple is little away from the bus stand. All these informations you know. and in one day also by car you can go and come. These people had been there today. And how many hours it takes, by which method you adopt for going there. In this way, all these informations you know, but does it enough? Is it enough? Can you compete with my experiential knowledge? My knowledge is thorough knowledge, experiential knowledge. You have some information. You have not gone to Gangotri. Similarly, the theory and the practice. By practice we get the experience, and by theory only informations. So this is how, what kind of knowledge the devotee possesses. This is why the question arises. The answer is given in this discourse, in this whole chapter. Nature is composed of the three qualities. It transforms itself into the body, senses, and the sensual objects to serve the two purposes of the individual soul, that is, bhoga, enjoyment, and apavarga, liberation. This also we have to understand thoroughly. Why we get contact with the objects through the senses? Why? What is the purpose? Why can't you keep quiet without using your senses? There are two purposes. One is to enjoy the objects, and other is to get rid of the object. Acceptance and avoidance, avoiding, rejecting. Why both? Because this world is composed by pairs of opposites. When you accept something, you have to reject it also. Something when is accepted, something you have to reject. You cannot accept everything at a time, at present. That is beyond your limit. So when you accept something, you have to reject some other things. That is how our life is. When I see something, I oversee other things. When I am looking at you, I am not able to look behind all the idols we are there. So everywhere there is opposition. In this way, when you accept something, you have to reject something. Without rejecting, you cannot accept. And without accepting, you cannot reject. That's how everything goes on. This is the law of nature. We have contact with the sense objects for two purposes. One is to enjoy, to be in contact with it and get the informations, and enjoyment means to be with it for a while. That is called worldly enjoyment. And real enjoyment is to be one with it forever. That is, to be one means, we always discuss about an example of amoeba, one cellular being. When it catches its prey for its propagation and growth, one cellular being, we call it germs or the what we call the एक रोग का क्या होता है, जीवाणु, बैक्टीरियाज. They are monocellular beings. What they do? They catch the prey and they overpower it, they encircle it, and they become one with it, assimilate it, and then they grow in a fraction of a second and then divide themselves into two. That's how they propagate their lives. In no time they grow into innumerable numbers. Just as chain reaction in bombs or in such things. Chain reaction. When one atom blasts, it has to blast the other atom near it. In that way, one blasts so many other atoms and they also blast their associated atoms. In that way, it reacts so quickly. It goes without control. This is how the growth of amoebas. In this way, when one becomes one with the object, that is explained in the yogic formulas, the ways, that is called समाधि. उसके बाद क्या आता है? क्या? जोर से बोलो. 10 बार मैं पूछ रहा हूँ क्या क्या करके, फिर भी वही. निर्वाण नहीं. To be one with the object. When you concentrate upon one object, any sense object, either form or the name or the sound, whatever, or the taste, any object of the sense, when you concentrate on that object for pretty long time without changing. Of course, it changes by the natural process. The senses change, the object changes. But if you can keep the mind steadily without changing, one-pointed thought, one thought becomes attached with it for a long time, then it becomes one with it. Ekakar, tadatmya. It becomes one with it. And then he forgets his identity. And both become one. That is the real knowledge. When you meditate on the sun and be one with the sun, then you can know all about the solar family and all the qualities of the sun, the nature of the sun, everything you can realize, you can experience. You become sun only. So naturally you get all the knowledge. When you meditate on any object for a long time, you become one with it and you get all the knowledge of the object. That is the yogic process. Just as one experiences the samadhi, one-pointed thought for a long time, and then he becomes one with the absolute truth slowly. Similarly, when you meditate on any object of the sense, then you get all the knowledge about this. And finally, that ends in the knowledge of the truth, absolute one. Because everything, when you know about the hand thoroughly well, then you know about the body. So, if you know one atom, you know the whole universe, because the structural form of everything is one only. Whatever is there in the universe, that is present in an atom. The constitutional form or the process how it is composed, it is the same everywhere. That is not changeable. That's why we say Jat Brahmande Tat Pindande. Whatever is there in the cosmos, that is present in the microcosm. So what happens? When you have some little informative knowledge of the object by the association of senses with the objects, then you get little pleasure for the time being. That is called enjoyment, sensual enjoyment. With all these names, means the sound, form, the smell, the taste, and the touch, all these. It is called enjoyment, a little joy, momentary joy, which is going to change. And when the joy changes, then sorrow has to appear, because everything is pairs of opposites. So in this way it goes on changing. After miseries you get little pleasure, after pleasure then little miseries, after night again the day, after the day again the night. So it goes on changing in this cycle. Now the winter is going to commence, and after the winter again the spring will come. After the spring, the summer. It goes on changing every moment slowly, and it repeats again and again. This is the law of nature, cycle. So This enjoyment ends in miseries. But the other kind of enjoyment, that is experience, you become one with it, that cannot change. You have lost your identity. You have become one with it. So that is called liberation. Bondage of identity. When I is there, then my has to be there. I cannot stand alone. I means if I am the body, then my body has so many parts, limbs. It is seen in many forms, many parts. So everyone becomes, when is visualized, it is only seen in many. This is the law of nature. One in many, many in one. That's how everybody is confused, as it were, whether it is one or many. One tree, can you show the tree? That is what we do the magic. What do you see? Book. One book or many books? One book, but many pages. There is no book anywhere. If you touch it, it is a page. If you touch the page, it is not the page. It is the part of the page. Okay, it is a sentence. When you touch the sentence, it is not the sentence. It is a word. When you see the word, it is not a word. It is only alphabets. It changes then and there. You don't know what are you looking and what are you observing. This is how one in many, many in one, that is the cause for our confusion, ignorance, and everything. We don't know anything, but we claim, oh, I know so much. This is how, when that doesn't change, it becomes the same and one without any change. That is called liberation. Liberation means your bondage with this one in many, many in one, which is nothing but ignorance, confusion. You are liberated from this confusion, which is the cause for confusion is ignorance, which is the cause for all the miseries, and that's how we feel incomplete within ourselves, and we create the desire to complete ourselves for perfection, and then the whole life is spent on fulfilling the desire. That means progressing towards perfection. That is called evolution process of life. Never it is fulfilled. Unending journey of life. So it ends only when you go beyond it. That is absolute oneness. So liberation from dualistic bondage, attachment, desires, restlessness, miseries. That is called liberation, and that is real knowledge. That is called apavarga in Sanskrit. Bhoga and apavarga. Either you have the changeable experience, short experience, short momentary enjoyment, then comes sorrows, then comes again little joy, again miseries. That is changeable, that is called bhoga, and liberation of varga, when you become absolute one without a second. You lose yourself, so there is no I, no my, beyond this dualistic world, beyond the relative world. That is called liberation. So in this way, we have knowledge of the objects, and purpose of the knowledge, which is of two types. Purpose also is two types. One is to enjoy momentary, and one is enjoyment eternal. This sorts of different knowledge. So what sort of knowledge the devotee who is so very dear to the Lord obtains? What sort of knowledge he gets? That is the question of Arjuna. Oh Lord, of course, you have given all the qualities and all the descriptions, qualifications of the dearest devotee, but after that, when he unites with you, becomes one with you, what kind of knowledge he obtains? That is the question. We should understand the question first, then only we should go to the answer. Then answer becomes easily understandable. The Gita is divided into three sections, of course, illustrative of the three words of the Mahavakya or great sentences of the Samaveda Tat Tvam Asi, thou, that thou art. Three words. So Gita also is divided into three sections. First is that. That's how in the 6th chapter we discuss on the absolute truth more. And that thou art. Thou, who are you? So all about the individual souls in the 2nd 6 chapters, and 3rd 6 chapters, that thou art that. In this way, three sections. Tat Tvam Asi. The next 6 chapters explain the path of devotion or bhakti yoga and the nature of that tatpada. That, how is that? What is that? The last 6 chapters treat of the path of knowledge or jnana yoga, and the nature of the middle term, art or see, which establishes the identity of the individual and the Supreme Soul, Jiva, Brahma, Aikyam, how the individual is one with the Absolute, how the microcosm is not different from the cosmos. That is in the last 6 chapters. So now we are starting now in the 13th chapter about all these. Slowly we'll end it in 18th chapter. So tomorrow we shall see, the Lord will answer to it. Arjuna now wishes to know in detail the difference between Prakriti and Purusha, matter and spirit. He desires to have a discriminative knowledge of the difference between them. In the 12th chapter, he had asked the difference between a yogi, a devotee, and a wise man who practices one-pointedness of mind without names and forms, directly on the abstract. And the other starts with names and forms and then becomes one with the Absolute. So who is better of the two? That was the question in 12th chapter. Now in 13th chapter, he is asking about the matter and the spirit. How are they different from each other or not? Are they same or they are different? See, are you able to see something? What is this? Pardon? Two fingers. Why two? Finger is finger because there is difference. Finger is common, isn't it? Why two? There is difference, that's how it is two. You see with difference, and it is decided in a fraction of a second. Intellect decides it is two. One is smaller, that's why the other is taller. And there is difference because it is not one. One finger has been divided into two. One is small, one is big. In this way, because of the differences, you have created two. Because, see, this is this because this is not this. Why it is a book? Because this is not a table. Without comparison, you cannot decide what it is. Because this is not the table, not the laptop, not the cloth. That's why it is book. You don't see the difference here. This is the book, this is the book also. But when this whole thing is compared with this, then only you say it is book, this is not the book. In this way, this whole world is comparative, relative. One is dependent on the other. This is bigger, that's why it is smaller. So this smallness quality depends upon the bigness of the other. Then only it is smaller. If it is all alone one, it is neither big nor small. No comparison. In this way, we have to understand the difference between them. Arjuna, that's why questions always the difference. Then only when you see the difference, then only you decidedly understand what is what. Without comparison, You don't understand what is what. This is the intellectual process. So tomorrow we shall see what does Lord answer, in what way. Of course, the answers will have questions within it, in between. When the answer is not understood, then questions will raise in between. So we shall go on with it. Hari Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadguru Bhagavan ki jai. Sachidananda Bhagavan ki jai. Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Gita Mata ki jai. Hari Om.